College sports is a multi-billion-dollar machine. March Madness prints money. The college football playoff games sell out stadiums. TV networks pay insane rights fees just to show these games. And since their inception, everyone got paid. Everybody except the players. For over 100 years, the people actually risking their bodies were told they couldn't earn a dollar. The NCAA called it amateurism. In reality, it was just free labor. I think there's another name for that. That finally started to change in 2021, and that's when college athletes gained their right to profit from their name, image, and likeness, or NIL for short. It was a historically seismic shift, and for the first time ever, players could actually get paid. And now there's a fight to change that. Some of the most powerful people in college sports just sat down at the White House with Donald Trump to talk about the future of NIL, because apparently that's the most pressing issue facing this nation. Let me be clear on my stance here before we continue. College athletes deserve every single dollar they could get. Honestly, they deserve more, but that's a separate video. And if politicians or power brokers try to roll that back, I'm here to call it out. Because this isn't just about NIL, it's about power, money, who gets the profit off these athletes. But to understand why this fight is happening now, you have to understand how this system was built in the first place.
The NCAA maintains that student athletes are students first, athletes second.
The NCAA built its entire identity on one word: amateurism. The idea was simple. Players don't get paid because they're amateurs. And what makes them amateurs? Because they don't get paid. It makes perfect sense if you don't think about it at all. Athletes were students first. They play for pride, scholarships, and dadgummit, they better be grateful for it. But dear God, not for money? That would be ludicrous. Meanwhile, right in front of their faces, this turned into one of the most profitable systems on the planet. The NCAA brings in billions a year. March Madness alone is worth $8.8 billion. And college football, even bigger. Programs like Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State bring in hundreds of millions every single year, all built literally on these players' backs. And players couldn't even sell their own autograph. Sign a jersey for money? Violation. Show up in a commercial? Violation. The NCAA enforced it hard. Careers got derailed, eligibility got stripped, and entire programs got punished, all to protect amateurism. But then people started asking the right questions. If this is amateur sports, then why are coaches making $10 million a year? Why are conferences signing for billion-dollar TV deals? Why does everything look like a professional league except the players weren't getting paid? Spoiler, because it was never amateur. It was a business built on unpaid athletes, and eventually that business ran into a problem. The players started fighting back.
Court is now in session.
The first real crack in the system came from Ed O'Bannon, former UCLA player who years after his career, he saw his likeness in a video game, but he didn't see any checks in his mailbox. And since he could do basic math, he sued. And in 2014, the court actually agreed with him. That decision weakened the NCAA's grip, and the rest of the players started to smell blood in the water. But the real turning point came 7 years later with NCAA versus Alston. This case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the NCAA got crushed. Ununanimous loss. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, of all people, didn't even sugarcoat it. He compared the NCAA system to businesses agreeing not to pay their workers, and that is very illegal. At that point, the system couldn't hold. Soon after, NIL became a reality. Athletes could finally make money, and just like that, power started to shift. And once athletes started getting paid, everything changed.
Much of what is shaping the college sports landscape today focuses on NIL. But what is NIL?
NIL flipped everything overnight. Players could sign endorsement deals, promote brands, sell merchandise, build real businesses. Some players were making millions. Quarterbacks at major programs have NIL collectives backing them. Top recruits are getting deals before they take a single snap. Critics called it chaos. I called it 100 years overdue, because now the market decides what these athletes are worth. And that money, it's not coming from the schools, it's coming from businesses and boosters. Let me say that again for the slow people in the back. That money is not coming from schools, it's coming from businesses and boosters. Fans want wins, brands want attention. The money follows the talent. For decades, these same players were told they had no value outside of a scholarship. And good old capitalism, now the market says otherwise. And that shift made a lot of powerful people uncomfortable. which is why the conversation moved out of locker rooms and into the White House.
Everybody was happy, and now you got yourself a mess.
Now this is where things start to get serious. A group of major college sports power figures met at the White House to talk about NIL. We're talking about people like Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, former Massachusetts governor, with an estimated net worth in the low millions. Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, who oversees the biggest conference in football, has a multi-million-dollar salary himself, and who can forget a Mr. Nicholas Saban, retired Alabama head coach, with a net worth of $80 to $100 million depending on your source, along with university presidents and athletic directors from top programs, many of them overseeing departments pulling in hundreds of millions. These are not neutral voices. These are people who built their careers inside the system that kept athletes underpaid. And now they're sitting with Donald Trump. Trump signed an executive order aimed at NIL. On paper, it's about structure. But let's look a little closer. The order pushes to ban booster-driven pay-for-play deals. It pushes for stricter definitions on what athletes can earn. It even calls for federal agencies to step in and regulate. And one of the biggest points, it reinforces the idea that athletes should not be employees. Here's why that's so important. Because if athletes aren't employees, they don't get labor rights. No unions, no collective bargaining. Let's call a spade a spade. This isn't about fixing chaos. This is about controlling the money. And when you look at who's in the room, that makes a lot more sense, because guess who isn't in the room? The players. And once you follow the money, the real motive starts to show.
But you start to follow the money, and you don't know where it's gonna take you.
College sports is drowning in money. Coaches make tens of millions, facilities look like five-star resorts, TV deals are worth billions. The college football playoff alone signed a $7.8 billion deal. And now for the first time, players are getting a piece. And suddenly, this is an affront to all things sensible. What a problem. People say NIL hurts competitive balance. But let's be honest here, everybody. There was never balance. The richest programs always had the edge. Better facilities, better recruiting pipelines, more exposure. NIL didn't break the system. It exposed it for what it already was. And now players are finally benefiting from the same machine that's been making everyone else rich. So I'll say it again. Athletes deserve every single dollar they can get. They create the value. They fill the stadiums. They take the hits. They're the reasons we are watching. If they're worth millions, they should be allowed to make millions like every other worker in the world. That's not controversial, that's reality. And now the question becomes, who controls what happens next?
I can see the future! I can see the future!
College sports is at a breaking point. For decades, the NCAA controlled everything. Players had no power. But then the lawsuits attacked, challenging the game. O'Bannon cracked the door, Alston blew it open, and NIL gave athletes real leverage. And now the fight reached Washington. Politicians, conference leaders, NCAA executives, all trying to shape the future. Some say it's about stability, but I ain't buying that for a minute. Because when athletes had nothing, nobody called it broken. Now they're getting paid, and suddenly it needs fixing. My stance is simple. If this system can make billions, the players we're actually coming to see deserve their share. Not scraps, real money. Because without them, none of this exists. And if people in power try to take that back, you should be paying attention, because this goes beyond NIL. It's about who really controls college sports. Thank you for watching.